here this morning with creative genius Drew Smith, who looks after Creative Mornings London and works at Sense Worldwide. Morning, Drew.
Morning, Alex. How are you?
Good, thank you. So we just wanted to know today how you got into the creative industry, what sort of work experience you've done, university degree.
Sure. So basically, I decided at the age of 6 that I wanted to design cars.
6?
Yeah,
Wow.
at the age of 6. So I was really lucky in that I knew very early on what it was that I wanted to do. So from choosing my school subjects through to my university degrees, I basically mapped it out from quite a young age. I started off with an industrial design degree in Sydney, and because the automotive sector requires a very specific knowledge set, I then did a master's at Coventry University here in the UK. That kind of threw up a couple of challenges and opportunities for me. I realised that I couldn't draw cars anywhere near as well as I needed to be able to. But I also discovered, because the Masters had a research component, that I really loved understanding the stories behind why people relate to products and how people relate to products. So after I finished my Masters, I pursued a PhD for a year, which I didn't complete because I was hungry for work experience. And basically worked really hard to kind of define my special skill set, which was understanding of the automotive sector, understanding of how people relate to brands, and the ability to do research, and got a job in Germany as a design strategist. So somebody who helps designers within car companies, in my case, understand how they can anticipate and meet the needs of the market from a design perspective. I guess what happened with the automotive sector, as everybody knows, is 2009, the situation got really, really hairy. Companies just weren't hiring consultancies like the one that I was working for. We didn't have a lot of work. It was a pretty depressing situation. So I took 9 months out to work out whether I actually still wanted to work in the automotive industry, learning what I had about it. And then just took a punt and applied for a job here in London with Sense Worldwide. As a, I guess you could say, kind of a creative management consultant. So that's basically how I got to where I am today.
Excellent. And you obviously spearhead Creative Mornings London.
Yep.
How did you become involved in that? And because it started in New York?
Yeah, it started in New York back in 2009. October is actually the birthday month. It's the third birthday for Creative Mornings. Basically, there's a really lovely backstory to this. I started blogging in 2007, and I came across this blog called Swiss Miss. It was run by a graphic designer, Tina Roth-Eisenberg, out of New York. And a few years into me sort of following her blog, she started this event called Creative Mornings. And she just pulled in like the most inspiring, amazing people. She had people like Paolo Antonelli, who's the design curator at MoMA, coming in and talking. I mean, more recently she had Milton Glaser, the guy who designed the I Love New York logo. And, you know, she was getting these guys in for nothing, getting 200 people into a room with breakfast, and just kind of spreading the word about creativity and creative practice. And when I moved back to London last year, I was like, why the hell haven't we got something like that here? So then started like an 8-month-long process of kind of talking to her on Twitter, alerting her to kind of the work I was doing, the blog that I had, showing her that I had some kind of public profile already. And then kind of the clincher came when I spoke to our creative director at work, Raj, and he said, look, you've worked so hard on this, why don't we just kind of make a video to show her sort of how serious she is? And one Friday afternoon, we took one of our like crappy little video cameras from work and put together this really, really simple, rough video. Bit of cheesy editing, bit of cheesy music, but something that really demonstrated the spirit behind me, behind Sense Worldwide, who were going to be the sponsors for it. And we sent that off on the Friday night, and I had a call from Tina on Monday morning, New York time, and she said, you guys are amazing, you've got it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you think from that experience that a bit of advice for our young people might be that I think when going for jobs, there's this misconception that you can't be yourself, that you can only share a certain amount of information about yourself and what you've done. It really seems like you took the idea of making a video and shared with Tina yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say that, you know, I've had a lot of, I wouldn't call it good luck in my career. I've had some amazing opportunities come my way, and I think one of the reasons why I've been able to seize those opportunities and turn those opportunities into success is by having a very clear idea, not only of what I can offer as a design professional, but also a very clear understanding of who I am as a person and what I represent as a brand. You know, and you know, your brand has to be built on the product truths. So there are certain things about me that I'm really, really good at, and in the way that I present myself, the way I represent myself to the world, I make sure that I'm always building on those product truths, if you like. I'm talking about myself as a product, but you know, creative product, they're kind of the same thing. So I would say absolutely make sure that your personality, it's not overwhelming, but your personality is evident, because at the end of the day, like, if you've got 100 creatives in the room and they're all talking about just how good their work is, like, how the hell are you going to make your mind up whether you want them or not? It's that personal interaction and that personality coming through in your work which is going to help you make a connection with the people who are looking to employ you. Yeah.
So what would the top sort of things you would recommend for young people wanting to make it into the creative world to do in terms of work experience, blogging, like what things would it be beneficial for them to involve themselves in?
Well, I think the first thing you need to work out really is what it is that you're good at. And you know, it's really old school, but do a strengths and weaknesses analysis on what you're good at, what your weaknesses are. And then start building your brand, your personal brand, from that point forwards, from the strengths. And I'd say that's absolutely the first thing. Come to understand who you are and what you're good at. And then, depending on how that plays out, pick a platform that's going to help you get that message out into the world. So in my case, it was blogging, because I was a decent writer. But I also was able to add in sort of visual analysis as well. So I was able to take, say, images of cars on my blog DownsideUpDesign and kind of overlay lines to illustrate to people who may not be experts what it is that I'm actually talking about. So, you know, my strength was taking complex stuff, making it easy to understand. I then went out into a blogging platform, started spreading that message. I'm also a little bit cheeky, so that element had to come through in the blogging as well. I was irreverent. And then beyond that, I moved into Twitter. I think it really comes down to, as I was saying earlier, what it is that you're really good at, and then pick the platform. I'd hate to say to people, like, you know, the best thing for you to do is go and write a blog. If you've got nothing to say, that's the worst thing that you can do. If you're more visually oriented, well, you might want to have just a purely visual blog that is representative of your photography or your artwork or something like that. I think that would be my advice. It's not 5 steps, but
it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
And lastly today, we'd just like to know what blogs, forums, publications do you read, or what would you recommend young people interested in creative industry jobs sort of get involved with?
Okay, so I think there are a couple of ways to approach this. First of all, like, sign up for Google Reader, and all the blogs that you find interesting and what have you, start loading them in there. But in terms of the sorts of blogs that I look at, although I don't work in the automotive sector anymore, I look at blogs that kind of cover the automotive industry from a number of different perspectives. So the consumer perspective, kind of the enthusiast perspective, kind of the industry side. So I'm getting a really good view on what's going on there. I also have kind of a particular interest in new technology, because new technology has the ability to kind of drastically impact the work that I do. So I do a lot of reading into the tech sector. So things like Wired, for example, Engadget, Gizmodo, they're quite useful to get sort of a broader perspective on that stuff. And then if there are particular brands that I'm interested, like Apple, You know, a lot of our clients at Sense come to us and say, oh, we want to be like Apple. And it's like, okay, well, what is Apple exactly like? You know, and you need to become an expert in certain things to respond to your clients. And then there are also kind of my client company blogs as well. And I think particularly when you're starting out and looking for jobs, being able to understand the tone of voice of the company that you're potentially interested in working for, being able to understand how they're thinking, knowing what work is going on within that company is really crucial, because it means that when you go along to an interview, you can say, oh yes, I was you know, looking on your company blog and I saw that you were doing this and I thought that was fantastic. And yeah, absolutely. So it's about just doing due diligence on the companies that you'd like to work for. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, it's a pleasure. Thanks very much.